Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first ever episode of Gamers Don't Bathe. My name is Vinny and I'm here with...
Hey, I'm Sam. I'm not much of an expert, but I'm just along for the ride.
Name's Harrison. I am an expert.
Oh, shut
I'm
up.
Harvey and I don't want to be here.
Harvey, you never want to be here.
True.
Harvey, when are you ever actually wanting to be here?
Never. I want to leave.
Between the hours of, 9 and 10 in the morning.
Too early for me, mate. That's way too early.
Nah.
Okay, so first thing I want to talk about this week is Game of the Year. It is that time of the year, ladies and gentlemen. The nominations have been released. Would you like me to go through them all with you today?
Go on then.
Yeah, man, I'm actually know them.
We have Elden Ring, God of War, Ragnarok,
Hey.
Stray,
Oh, all right. Yeah, I like that.
Horizon Forbidden West,
Oh, okay.
Xenoblade 3, The Chronicles, whatever it's actually called. Kind of forget the title of this one.
Yeah, yeah.
And Plague Tale Requiem.
Oh, interesting.
Now-
Rat game.
I have only actually played 2 of these games.
Oh,
Those 2 being Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok, which I think you can all agree is the top contender for Game of the Year.
well.
Oh yeah.
While it's true, I want, Ragnarok to win because it's the best game on that list by far.
Agreed.
I don't know, it feels like Elden Ring's got more of a shout because it appeals to that kind of hardcore gamer crowd that's been kind of lacking since the kind of end of Dark Souls.
And the other thing with Elden Ring, it's multi-platform. That's what God of War has been held back by.
God of War's been held back by PlayStation's insistence that it needs its own games, but
It
that's
really
starting
doesn't.
to go.
Another thing with Game of the Year, the adaptations into different sources of media.
Oh yeah.
There's been lots of adaptations this year, and I want to talk about 3 in particular.
Oh.
Number 1, the Cuphead show.
Hey, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Now,
That's
while
not
I
bad.
absolutely loved the game, the show didn't quite hit the same for me.
Nah,
The game had that 90s, maybe even 80s retro vibe, and
bit early. Is it
maybe
30s,
even 30s. Yeah, it was an
30s,
early.
Disney.
It was like early Disney levels of animation, and I really liked the
Yeah.
challenging aspect of the game. But the show
Cuphead
just,
show's a bit too modern.
yeah,
It's a bit too modern.
The next adaptation is League of Legends Arcane.
Haven't got around to watching it yet, but the things I've heard are pretty good.
I won't
League of
watch it.
Legends.
I
Now,
hate it.
while I haven't played League of Legends, I have seen the show, and I want to say it is spectacular. The animation is top notch, and considering it's a Netflix show, they actually did quite well.
Netflix gonna make something good.
Netflix,
Yeah.
No way.
Netflix shows are one of 2 things:
Either
trash
incredible.
or just godly.
Yeah.
There's never anywhere in between.
And the last adaptation that I want to talk about is one that's held very dear to my heart.
Oh no.
Oh,
Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Now-
here come the tears.
I cried watching the final episode, and then I cried again when playing the game. It was such an incredible show. And Harrison, you haven't actually even seen the show, have you?
Not yet. It's on the list.
Watch it. I played, completed, cried in the game. Yes.
Oh, I cried because the story was so good, or cried because it wouldn't load.
Cried because the story was so good, bruh.
I cried because it
Only
couldn't
used to
load.
not load.
Yeah, no, it's fine. You only have to wait 2
Oh, no,
years
yeah,
after the
it's-
initial release to be able to play it.
It's fixed now, but
I
oh,
thoroughly
God.
enjoyed. I thoroughly enjoyed playing Cyberpunk. It was one of those
Need to
games
go back.
that
Need to
kind
go
of
back.
felt like a futuristic GTA, but it felt
Yeah.
but it felt a lot more confined than GTA did. GTA has that very open feel, but
You can do a lot.
you can do a lot. And in Cyberpunk, there's not as much to do.
It's more, I kind of get the feeling where it's a mix of something like GTA and a bit like something like the Fallout games. It's that kind of story progression thing.
The story, the story feels very Fallout, but
Yeah.
the actual gameplay feels very GTA. And I
like
think
a first-person GTA.
like a very first
mod.
person. Yeah,
Well, not
it's
even a
an-
mod,
it is a
first-person
first-person GTA.
Pretty much, yeah.
I think the problem with Cyberpunk was like, as they kept trying to make it and kept pushing it back, other games kept having these massive like technological bounds. Like Red Dead Redemption 2 came out and they're like, fuck, how do we release this?
Yeah.
How do we release this and still have it to, as like
A competitor for Game of the Year.
exactly, how do we release this?
Because that came out in the same year as Hades got Cyberpunk, and honestly, I don't believe that Hades should have won. because it feels very non-linear, even though it is a
Yeah.
story-based game.
It's more
2020.
more the fact that Cyberpunk released in that state,
Yeah,
which
that's what
even
brought it
even
down.
as a fan of Bethesda games, I was laughing because
Bethesda has a place in my heart.
Bethesda always has a place in my heart.
Bethesda
let's
is a
be
very
fair.
special
But
place in my
Yeah.
heart.
Just because they were good to begin with.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
I
were.
love Bethesda.
They fell off.
They fell off.
They fell off but brought it back.
They fell off from 76, but they're not quitting.
Didn't Microsoft buy Bethesda?
They did.
So Xbox now
every
has the
single
full catalog.
Fallout series. The entire Fallout series is on
Speaking
Game
of
Pass.
Xbox, this episode is actually sponsored by Xbox themselves. Yeah, I know. We're moving.
What about that?
That was a
I
great
know.
sponsor for a
First
episode.
ever
know,
episode, and we're
it's a big
moving up
one.
in the world.
Yeah, man. What's gonna be next, man? How are we gonna do this?
Sony.
Nah, not Sony. But anyway, yes, this episode is actually sponsored by Xbox. That is absolutely insane. Xbox in the past 2 years have released 2 brand new consoles, which being the Series S and the Xbox Series
Series
X,
X. Let's
which
go.
is by far my favorite console I've ever actually played on.
It's really that good.
It is absolutely incredible.
Especially with the backwards compatibility, all those
And
old
the
Xbox
quick resume,
classics.
the quick resume, which is
oh.
available.
What's quick resume?
Basically, if you don't know what quick resume is, you can leave one game, go to something else, and then,
just
jump
jump back.
straight back into where you left off, almost just like that. It's so much
amen.
fun. But to get the most out of playing on the Series X, pick yourself up a Series 2 Elite controller with full customizability on the Xbox Design Lab and controller hoodies made available by Microsoft to keep that warm for the whole holidays. Thank you very much. Back to the podcast. Okay, what is next? The influence in media.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh, heavy topic for the first episode, boys.
it
Let's go.
is. So what do you think has been a good influence video games have had on media?
Well, like you said, we've got shows like Edge Runners, or even the Cuphead show. And there's only more to come out, I assume. There's going to be more. I
Also,
don't know.
another video game property that was released as a movie this year, Uncharted, with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that one.
No,
Why did
it's
anyone
not
think that was a
great.
good idea?
Tom Holland
It
should
was a
not be
good i-
cast in
it was a good
everything.
idea.
On paper, these like big adaptations seem like a good idea because you got all the actors, you got enough
The story.
interest, you got
The
everything.
story is already there.
Execution is always off because
It's
when
off because you don't get someone who actually
Understands
cares
why.
or understands.
Tomb Raider, both Tomb Raider movies with Angelina Jolie.
Yeah,
Exactly, 'cause you get-
there's
At least
something.
entertaining.
They're
And
entertaining.
Angelina Jolie is quite fit, but
Yeah,
And she's a pretty good actress.
and she's
not
a
a
great
bad actress,
actress.
but she couldn't make that
She's very
script work.
versatile, but she could not make that script actually any good.
Hmm.
It had George Lucas levels of dialogue.
I think the issue is
we're
the-
talking prequels level here.
Yeah,
not-
prequels
not
levels,
originals.
prequels, not originals.
the people who made them, like made all these video game adaptations. They're people who work in TV as their primary source, and they've worked in TV for decades.
Yeah.
They
Don't-
don't understand how to utilize other mediums to implement them.
They try and turn 2 episodes of a TV show into a 2-hour-long movie, and it just doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, the same can be said when you're adapting.
The thing is, a lot of people don't actually like the way that video games have influenced the minds of people. They think that video games have turned people violent, and that's not
It's
true
just
because,
not true, is it?
however, all these things people say, if you look into it, doctors who play video games actually have a 37% faster surgery time. They also perform 29% less mistakes than people who don't. So
It's
do
that,
your
it's that
research,
hand-eye
fools.
coordination skills that the gaming
Do
can
your
give you.
research.
Though
How
I will say, on the TV and video game adaptation side, there are 2 series that are quite beloved that are coming to TV.
go for it.
Last of Us.
That's gonna be amazing.
That's
Which
going
is
to be
gonna be
amazing.
good. It's gonna be
Pedro
good.
Pascal is such a good actor.
such a good actor.
He's playing Joel.
Oh, very nice.
And apparently there's going to be a Fallout show.
Wait, for real?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
That was, I think we've seen
And
set.
there was-
Which
Assassin's
era?
Creed.
Which era of Fallout though? Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas,
It
76.
looks 3 to 4. It's got that style, but that's still an iconic.
Is it live action or is it?
It's
It's
live
live
action.
action, baby.
I want to see Woody Harrelson in that. I can see.
Oh,
him.
yeah.
I could
Oh,
see
yes.
him as one of the Minutemen,
Yeah, I see that.
like the
Either
leader.
a Minuteman or a Raider.
Yes.
He'd be either pure good or pure evil.
Like leader of the Raiders, isn't it? Imagine
I'd be
there's a-
terrified.
Imagine there's a reveal where like the Raiders will walk up and he takes up his helmet and it's like Woody Harrelson.
It's Woody Harrelson. He just puts a hat on.
But it works.
Okay, next.
Massive shotgun just so well. What do we got here then?
Yeah.
What do we got here then, boys?
What we got going on here then, man?
Put Woody Harrelson in power armor.
What is your guys' opinions on licensed video games from the early 2000s?
Garfield Kart is the best.
Yeah, game of the year every year.
Yeah,
For
Garfield
example,
Kart, man.
the early 2000s Spider-Man tie-in games.
I actually love those games.
They are good.
The
Before
pizza time missions.
pizza time.
But those goddamn balloons.
the balloons. Nah, never
I will never forgive that
forget.
child for them balloons. Oh my god.
Buy a new balloon.
The Shrek games though.
The Shrek games.
Bro, man.
And the Rat-
Game of the
The
year.
Ratatouille games.
Game
It
of the
should have
year.
won Game of the Year.
Should have.
I don't know why it didn't. It should have won Game of the Year every year.
It should be the ultimate game of the
I
year.
can't believe Garfield Kart didn't win Game of the Year.
Yeah,
Me
it
too.
was
I know it came out in
a
2002,
disgrace.
but like had a remaster this year.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, it did. It did.
Okay, so we are approaching the end of this episode, but before we go, we've received some sad news in the past month. Unfortunately, Kevin Conroy, who was known as the voice of the Batman for 30 plus years, unfortunately passed away after a
Not-
short battle with cancer
Not
at the
just
age of
games,
66.
but films, TV. He was Batman.
He was Vengeance the Knight, and he was Batman.
Yeah.
And one other person who was very iconic to a lot of people's childhood, Jason David Frank, who played Tommy Oliver in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and many
Green
other
Ranger.
Power Ranger series. The Green Ranger unfortunately passed away. He unfortunately committed suicide. But our condolences go out to both families. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in to this week's episode of Gamers Don't Bathe.
Yeah.
Peace.
But yeah, thank you very much. We will see you when we see you next. This is Vinny signing off.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, man. I've had a blast of a time.
It was great having you, man.
All right.